Joy.
Okay, so good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, good evening even. So I'm Gareth Middleton, and I've worked for Clevertouch for the last 3 years, and before that I was a primary school teacher for 24 years. And I'll now let Gilly introduce herself.
Hi everybody, so my name's Gilly Fraser-Rees, and like Gareth, I have also been a primary school teacher for just over 12 years. So hopefully Gareth and I've got a great breadth of knowledge between us, and hopefully we'll be able to share some of our favourite top tips with you to get the best out of LYNX Whiteboard. So I'm going to pass over to Gareth now, who's going to take you through tip number 5.
Okay, and we've also got Harvey, who's monitoring the chat. Okay, so the first tip I'm going to show you is about creating flow quizzes within LYNX Whiteboard. So I'm just going to start to share my screen on my LYNX Whiteboard page. Here we are, and hopefully you can all see that there. Julie will give me a thumbs up to prove that we can. Thank you very much. And I'll just minimize that down. Now, what you're looking at here is I'm in LYNX Whiteboard and I have created some slides. And if I go to my slide viewer, we can see all of the slides I've created. And here's the slide viewer. And there are my slides. So if I move up and down in here, we can see the slides that I was using last week, if you joined us for that seminar. And then here are the slides I've created that I'm going to use in this tip. So this tip is about creating an interactive flow quiz within LYNX. And as I mentioned earlier before we started recording, LYNX Whiteboard is our presentation software. And you can have it as an app in your Clevertouch screen, but you can also download it onto a vast range of devices, including laptops, as I'm doing, to create your presentations on. Now, to create the slides, really simple. All I've done is I've found an image that I've put in the background and I've written a text box. Text boxes are easy to do. I have a text tool down here. I can choose one of the default fonts that I've set in the settings, and I can click somewhere on the screen and I can just start typing in there, and I've got my text box. I don't actually want that one there, but hello everyone, and I can delete that off. So I've got my text box. And to find my image, I use the media search. So if I go to the plus button here, there's a content area. And I'm in the media search where I can search all of these internet areas for media. So if I was to type in Pompeii, which is the topic of the question we've got here, and I go to one of the websites, there you can see I've got images of Pompeii and I can drag one over if I need it. Okay, so that's how I've created all of these next few slides. Also, on the next slide here, you can see I've got an arrow, and that's going to be used as a back arrow to the question page. And I find those sorts of things in the local content. And I've got a shapes area, and there is an arrow that I can drag on whenever I want one. There we go. Okay. So let me just close that down and we'll go back to my slide viewer. So as you can see, I've got these 4 slides. So when you're creating a flow quiz in LYNX Whiteboard, you end up creating a lot of slides for something that, you know, the children might go through rather quickly, but at least it's quite quick to make. So as you can see, I've got my question: what destroyed the Roman city of Pompeii? And then I've got 3 possible answers. Earthquake, and that's a wrong answer, so I need a back arrow. I've got volcano, which is a correct answer, and a forwards arrow to the next question maybe. And finally, where it says flood, just move that over there so you can see the word flood, and that's also a wrong answer, so we'd go back to the question. But what I need to do is I need to create the links between these 3 slides and the question slide. Now, to do that, the slide viewer is going to help me. Now, on every slide, there are 4 icons in the corners. So here on the yellow one, it's easy to see. So we've got the number of the slide, slide 6. We have an up and down arrow, which helps us to move the slides into a different order. So if I click on the arrow and then drag this down, you'll see the slide changes from number 7 to number 8 and so on. Move it back up, so I'll put it back, oops, in position 6. Okay, we also have a hamburger menu, and in here we can make background changes, we can delete pages, we can insert pages, copy pages, and make duplicates of pages as well. But the tool I'm going to be using is this chain link here. This is what creates the flow windows between slides. So if I jump to this slide again, and I want to make a link to the 3 possible answers, all I have to do is pick up the chain link, drag it onto the page, and drop it on. Or I can pick up the chain link, drag it up to the question page, and again, let go. And it has appeared here. Let's do that again with the final one. Chain link, bring it up, drop it on, and move it over. Now I don't need that again. That's it done. So I've got my 3 windows into the other slides. They're all a little bit small at the minute, so I'm just going to enlarge them to a size that the children would be able to read. And what's great about links is that it helps you when you're trying to make these links. You can see how it kind of snugly fits into the right size if I just snap that out there. So I've got my 3 possible answers, and I can arrange them as I like. Also, of course, I can make these as small as I like. So you can hide little windows. So I could decide to hide this answer here as if it's part of the sign. But because I want the children to be able to read these, I'm going to drag it out larger. What I don't want, though, is I don't want the children to see if the answer is correct or wrong before they've even made their choices, which we can see at the minute because we can go to the next slide. We can already see if they're right or not. So we need to hide some of the features of those other slides. So I'm going to go to the next slide. And because we've got our flow window now, it will look like I'm flowing into the earthquake page. There we go. Now, the word wrong, I don't want that to appear. And if I hold Control, I also don't want the arrow here to appear. So I'm going to hide those. And to do it, it's really easy. I just go to the eye here and I click Hide in Preview. I'm going to go to the next page and I want to hide the word correct. And I want to hide the arrow moving us forward. So I go to the eye and I'm going to make them not visible anymore by hitting that toggle. It's all about toggles. And I'll do the same again to these 2. And go to the eye and hit the toggle. So now if I go back to my page here, you'll see that we've got the earthquake, but there's no extra writing and no arrow, and the same with volcano and flood. However, I don't like these white backgrounds that are on here. So this time what I'll do is I'm going to click on one of them, and you'll see there's another type of an eye when you have a flow window called Reference Options. Click on there, and I'm going to get rid of the border color, and I'll get rid of the border line as well. I can do that with both of these 2. So more toggles, as we say in English. So there we are. I've got my 3 flow windows. However, there's one more thing I need to do. I need to sort out these back arrows because at the minute, if I click on them, they don't do anything. So I want to turn those into a hyperlink. So what I'm going to do is click on the arrow and go to the 3 dots, because it's in here that you can make the choices for everything on how it will behave when you're presenting. So I want this arrow to become a link, and you'll see Gilly and I use all 3 of these today in our tips. So I'm going to go to link, and I want it to go to a slide. It could go to a file, it could go to a web address, but I want it to go to a slide. And I don't want it to go to a later slide, I want it to go to my question slide. So now I click OK twice, and I can tell I've made a link because there's a chain link icon. When I click on that, I go to that page. Let's go to the flood page now. Let's enter that. And we'll do the same again. 3 dots, link, choose my slide. There it is. Okay. OK, and I've got my link to take me back. I don't need to create a link on the arrow for the volcano yet because I haven't created my second question. So let's start presenting. To do that, we go to the bottom left corner, the menu area, and start presenting is right at the bottom. So now I'm in full screen mode, and I can now use this as a proper quiz. So I can say to the class, what destroyed the Roman city of Pompeii? And if some of the children think flood, they might come up and tap that flow window. And we go in, and then it reveals, uh-oh, that answer's wrong. So we need to go back from the arrow. And now I can press on volcano, and we'll see, yes, we got it right. We are correct. These kind of flow windows are really useful. Not only for quizzes, you might want to make an interactive story where children choose which path they take. Or you might just have a kind of a topic web where you can choose which topics you're going to go and research. You've got that choice with these flow windows. But that is how to make an interactive quiz in LYNX Whiteboard. So I'm going to stop sharing now. And unless there's any questions straight away on that tip, I'm going to hand over to Gilly for our second tip of the day, which is tip 6.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for that. And thank you, Gary. I'm also going to share my screen now with you. Hopefully, Gareth will let me know if for any reason you can't see it. So I'll just share that now, and I'm waiting for Gareth for the thumbs up. Perfect. So like Gareth said, today is number 6, top tip. And it's all about creating content counters. So I've already got a bit of a background and things popped on. I've got a little bit of a template here already. So I can show you the way to make counters. Now, this is great, particularly if you're using models and images. I've set this one up for maths. You can use it for lots and lots of different things as well. So I will show you this example down here at the bottom. So at the bottom of our toolbar here, I'm going to click onto our plus icon there, and you can see it will take me into content. Now, in our content, we have our media search. So you can search for images, clip art, Giphies. You can even have a YouTube on there as well. But this time I'm going to go into my local content. In there as well, you'll find things such as different backgrounds, handwriting, lots of different maths tools. You can also build up a bank of your own resources that you might choose to use on a regular basis. But for this demonstration, I'm going to go into shapes here. And I'm going to pull on a circle. So I just literally click on it and drag it onto my screen. That's all I need to do. And I'm now going to close down that content window. Now, with each icon you have on the screen, you will always get your little floating toolbar. So I've got it here. I can move it around with the little crosshairs. I can use the nodes to resize it to whatever size I would like. I have it quite small at the moment. I can use the little paint pot. I can change the color of those icons, and I can even use the pen to change the width of that outline. I can also change the style of that line to a dash. But for this, I'm going to leave it as a plain solid line. So all I'm going to do now is I'm going to double click inside that circle. And you can see I've got a little cursor there now, which means I'm able to type in it. So I've typed 100. And what I can also do in the text settings, I can choose a different font, or I can have one preset already. So in here, it will preload all the fonts that you have within your computer. So I'm just going to go with that one there. You can change the color of it, whether you want it to be bold, and I'll make that just a little bit bigger so it's nice and clear. So there we go. I've got my first counter created. What I'm going to do now is I can just copy that. So by pressing Control and C and then Control and B, I can copy that straight away. It makes a clone. Or I can use the 3 little dots and clone that straight away. So entirely up to you which way you find it easier. So now what I need to do is change. So I've got my hundreds counter. I now need my tens counter. and my ones counter. And I want to match it up so it makes it nice and clear for our learners that the hundreds, that's our column that we're thinking about, that's going to be green. Our tens are going to be yellow. And again, you can choose the colours to suit your learners. And the ones I'm going to have as red. So my counters are all ready now. All I need to do is to be able to use them and replicate. So again, click on them individually or as a group, and I'll show you that in a moment. I've got my floating toolbar with the little dots, 3 dots. Click on that and I'm going to click on replicator. So I've clicked on that for that one. And then if I highlight the 2 just by dragging my cursor across, I can do it with multiple ones. So I've got my replicator on there as well. So now I'm all set to go with models and images to help support learners with their maths. So all I need to do now is go into my hamburger menu. If I click on Start Presentation, I'm then in my presentation. So you can do this up at the board. I've got my board behind me, or you can do it from your computer as well, which is what I'm doing here. So I can then create the counters. So I've got 200. So I've got 200s there. I've got my 3 10s. And I have my 1 1s. And I'm adding on 100 and another 3 10s. And then 5 1s there. So you can either do this at the board, which makes it really easy for the learners. And I've got my 5 1s there. You can then even choose the tools behind you. So you can choose the pen and you can show about that group. And so it's how many ones have we got there all together now? And you might write the answer below. So we've got 6 1s all together. You might group your 10s. How many 10s have we got? Well, we've got 6 10s. And then finally, how many hundreds have we got? And we've got 300. So we know our answer is 366. And it's just as simple as that. And you can copy these and make multiples of them by duplicating the slides. So you're not having to create everything over and over again. Just going to stop presenting. And when I stop presenting, it always asks if I want to keep the changes I've made while presenting. Well, in this case, no, I don't, because I'd like to be able to use these slides again. So if I click no, it puts me back to the beginning one there. Now you can also do this with other items, such as I've got some base 10 or Dean rods here. So I've got a 10 and a 1, and I've even got a little image down here of a dinosaur. So maybe perhaps lower down school, you might be counting 3 dinosaurs and 4 dinosaurs, and you can count those dinosaurs out. So again, I'm just going to highlight all of those. And again, those 3 dots in the floating toolbar, and I'm going to click on replicator. And now when I go back in that presentation mode, so I've got 32, I can pull out 3 10s, so that's 30, and 2 1s. And then I could pull out an additional 1 10 and 4 1s and calculate it that way. Again, you can annotate over the top. And you can do the same with the dinosaurs. So you can pull those dinosaurs out. So it's another really great function and really quick and simple to use there as well. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to pass you back to Gary for tip number 7. Oh, Gareth, I think you're still on mute.
Thank you, Gilly. I was just keenly looking in the questions there. There aren't any questions at the minute, so feel free to type them in at any point. We'll get to them at the end of the session then. But I hope so far you're following along fine and enjoying the tips. So here we go with the next one. So I'm going to start sharing my screen again. LYNX Whiteboard here. And here we go. So we've had our flow quiz and we're going to go into something totally different. So I'll just stop presenting. And we're going to go here. Now, this tip Number 7 is all about creating an interactive diagram. Last week, I showed how you can create a layered diagram. So an interactive diagram where the children actually come and interact with the diagram and peel away different layers. This time, it's all about the children using labels to identify features on a diagram, the kind of thing that we often do with worksheets and so on in school. So I'm going to base this diagram on a Roman legionary and the equipment that he would have carried. I'm doing the Romans because it's a big topic in history in the UK. The Romans, of course, invaded and conquered much of Britain back in the height of their power. And there are lots of Roman ruins that you can come and visit in the UK. So that's me doing my bit for the UK Tourist Board. And now I'm going to show you how very quickly in LYNX you can make some really cool resources. Now I've been researching already to help me make this activity. I've already found an image of a Roman legionary that I want to use as the image I'm going to turn into a diagram. I think it's a lot better than some of these others here. This one here, for example, I can show you where I found it. I had these here to help me do my research, to get the words that we're going to turn into labels. So if I go to my content area again and my media search, I can search for whatever I like. So I'm going to search for Roman legionary diagram. And if I was to search in YouTube, for example, I'd have some videos and I can drag a video out and pop that onto the page maybe for later on. That will take a while to embed on. YouTube videos are great to find in the media search because when they're embedded in, they'll play without any adverts. They get stripped away. So there's a video that might be good, but I really need that image back. So if I go into Bing here, I can see my image and I can drag it on. There it is. So that's going to help me a lot. I can see lots of the parts of the Roman legionary that I would like to, or legionnaire that I would like to label. Now, there is another place where we can search the web, of course, in a browser. And LYNX has a browser included in it. To show you where it is, we're going to go back in here to the dashboard. So this is what you see when you first open up LYNX. So I can create files, open up existing files, and I can open up a browser. When I click on browser, I can then choose to have it as a whole sort of page, or if I want it split screen. So yes, split screen will be perfect. On the left, I can go back to my content. And in here now, I can either handwrite if I'm on a touch screen or type what I'm looking for. Now, I've got some really good information, but I can't quite remember what the proper name is for a Roman legionary sword. So I'm going to type that in. What was a Roman legionary's sword called? And I'll hit search. And once I've accepted all the permissions, here we are. It was called a gladius. So I can highlight the word gladius, drag it on, and drop it onto the page. I can also highlight all this other text too, if I really want it. And this will go onto the page as editable text. And this image here as well. So that's my research done. Now I can either close the browser or I can get rid of the split screen. No split, apply. So now we can see the content that I collected directly from the internet. So this image here is useful because it shows me that the sword that I've got here is accurate. It is the same kind of shape as the sword here. But that image is a bit grainy. I don't like it too much, so I'm going to drag it down to my bin and delete it. I don't need all of this text either, although I could click in here and delete parts of it and so on and change the style. But I don't need it. So there's another word there that I've selected, but I can get rid of that too. I can just click delete. But I do want the word gladius. That is one of the things that I'd like the children to label the sword. But I don't like that font. So if I go into my text settings, I can choose one of the fonts on my device, as Julie did earlier, or I can just choose one of my defaults. And I really like this style here. Just need to make the box a little bit longer. So there we are. There's Gladius. I'll just make it a little bit bigger as well, because what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cheat, and I'm going to use this text box to help me make all of the others. Because if I go to the 3 dots, instead of turn it into a replicator or something, I can just make a clone. And if I do this, I can create as many labels as I like, and I want 6 of them. So I believe 1 more. There we go. Now, obviously, we don't want them all to say Gladius, but that's fine because I can just edit them in a moment. So if I just spread these out, so they all look at least equidistant, it's going to save me some time as well. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start changing the words. So what else shall we label on here? We've got the spear, which I know the Romans called a javelin. We also have his helmet. We've got his shield. We've got his sandals. And we could label quite a few things on here, but we'll just go now for his armor, his breastplates and so on. Could have done his dagger, his tunic, his cloak, but we're just going to do 6 for the purposes of this. So there are the words. These 2 images help me do that research, but I don't need those anymore. So thank you very much. So what I do want, though, is I want a box that these words can sit in for the children to drag out when it's time. So if I go to the plus button here, I'm going to go to insert shape. I want a rectangle. What color do I want? I think we'll go with a nice pink color. On the color wheel here, I can just tailor that a little bit, make it a bit paler. And now I can drag it onto the screen. So I don't want it too thick. So that's going to come down there. Perfect. I can now select that and move it up a little bit. Now you'll see it's covered over my video, but that's absolutely fine. I can sort that out now. I'm also just going to get the image ready that we're going to turn into a diagram. I'm just going to make that larger as well. Okay, try and match it to the thing there. And I need a bit of space on either side for the children to apply the labels when it's time. But this image and this rectangle, I don't want them in this layer. I want to send them into the background. And we talked about this last week, but I'll show you again. I'm going to hold Control and click on this as well. And then if I go here, I have arrange and transform, and I'm going to be able to send these to the background layer. So now they're in the background layer, and I'm going to exit. So now I can't click on those anymore, and we can see my lovely video again now. So that's ready. Now I need to take the words over here, and I'm going to highlight all of them at the same time, and I'm going to drag them over using this crosshair over to their box. Now they're a little bit large there, so if I go in here, I can actually shrink them all down a little bit as well. Let's see if that works. And maybe I'll just make this a bit smaller for now, because it doesn't matter how small it is, we can zoom in on it when we need it. So let's just lift all these up a little bit. Okay. That'll do. And maybe I'll just make that a little bit larger again so you can see it. Okay, so we've got our words. And again, look, see how you can select things. Even though I've selected 6 things, I only have the 1 floating toolbar, and I can position those a bit more centrally so it looks a bit better. Okay, so I've got my labels, but to make them interactive, I'm going to go to the 3 dots, and instead of clicking replicator, I'm going to click editable while presenting. Okay, now obviously when you are using LYNX, you can select the language that you would like to use with LYNX's interface, and hopefully the translations will work really well for you. If they don't, please let the LYNX developers know, let us know, and we'll try to correct that. Now, we're just missing some arrows now. So if you remember my other tip from earlier, we can go to the content, go to the local content, the shapes, and here's an arrow. Let's drag that over. The only thing is that arrow is going to be a little bit thick. I'm just going to make it a bit thinner, save myself some time this time. I also don't like the color. I'd like it to be white. I'd like the outline to be black and a little bit thicker. not that thick. There we go, perfect. Now I want 6 labels, so I'm going to use the replicate tool again, the clone tool, to very quickly make my 6. So there's number 5, there's number 6, fantastic. Now let's start placing these arrows. So one is going to point at the javelin, one is going to point at the sword, the gladius, and I can just stretch that out a little bit. One of them can point at the sandals. I'll stretch that one out a little bit too. Now these 3, if I'm going to have them on this side, all facing the wrong way. So I'm going to highlight them all and I'm going to arrange them by flipping them. So I could rotate them or I can just flip them. There they go. So now we've got the shield, we've got the armor here. So I'll just stretch that out a little bit. And we've got the helmet. Perfect. Now, I don't want those arrows messed with either, so I'm just going to select them all and arrange them into the background layer. And then we'll exit there. I'm just finally going to make this editable while presenting to the video. So now we're ready. I can invite children up, and when we're in presentation mode, they can have a go at completing this interactive diagram. So I can collect the word gladius and move it to the sword, javelin, helmet, the shield, the sandals, and finally the armor. And of course, we can then watch the video too. And we can even zoom in on it. Oh. I made it.
The year is 15 CE, and the rope
Let me just come off the.
is prospering.
There we go.
Most of the credit will go to the emperor, but this success wouldn't have been possible without loyal.
Let me just pause that there, and I'm going to stop sharing. And that is our third tip of this session about how to make an interactive diagram. I'm now going to pass you back to Gilly.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Gareth. And I am once again going to share my screen for a final time today with you all. Hopefully Gareth will show me, give me a little thumbs up if that is sharing with you all. So perfect. And my final top tip for you today is number 8, which is our mass recognition pen. Remember, all these can be downloaded and seen via our Clevertouch website, and they do have step-by-step guides to help you as well. So with our mass pen recognition, again, just remind you of our tools down at the bottom here. We've got the pens, we've got the text, we've got the cropping tools, and then obviously where we find our content and things in here as well. We've got the little cursor there to move things. So I'm going to go into our pens, and again, very much with our pens, these 3 all open up the same menu, just start in a different place. So we've got our fine tip there. I can change the color of it, and I can change how thick I want to see it as well. Our highlighter, again, it's just a different part of the menu. And then our eraser is the one that opens up slightly differently. It doesn't take you to that menu, but you can just choose the size that you would like to erase from. So for this example, I'm going to be looking at our maths tool pen here. So it's this one here that I've highlighted. So I'm going to come onto the board now because my writing is much better on the board than trying to use a mouse, but you can use a mouse by all means to do this as well. And actually we'll see how well my writing is. So I'm going to just write a few calculations onto the board. So I'm going to start with an addition one. So I'm going to make sure I'm selected on my pen tool down at the bottom, the maths recognition. And let's have 324 and 137. Write my little equals, give it a little moment to calculate. And oh, it's recognized those numbers. So those numbers are now there with those calculations. And if I click onto my little select tool, if I move this blue box away that has just appeared, it reveals my answer, 461. So you can preload lots of these calculations onto your board, ready to reveal the answer. You can just move and reveal the answer that way, or you can also just click on it. And as always, you get the little floating toolbar. And if I click on the I this time, I can just reveal the answer behind. So it works for addition. So let's have a look what happens when we do a subtraction calculation. So again, clicking on my maths recognition tool, let's have 279, and we're going to take away 35 this time. And again, I'll leave it for a little moment, let it change. So it's changed it into that text. Again, it's calculated my answer there, and I can move that box to reveal it again. So that's great. What I can also do is with my little selector tool, I can just, I can move those around, but I can select those things there and I can drop those into the background so I know they're not going to get messed with. So when I come up, I can, I'm still in my background. Make sure you exit the background. I can't then move those around, but I can still move my rectangular box so I can still hide and reveal those answers. Then our maths recognition tool, it also works with our times in and multiplication. So let's pop up another multiplication question. Let's have 314 multiplied by 12 equals. And again, give it that time to recognize. So I've got 314 times 12. And again, it's calculated that answer for me. So it's a really quick way to get some of those calculations up on the board for your students. Now, although it doesn't calculate your division, it will still recognize those symbols. So for example, if I put on here, let's go to my math tool, 48 divided by 12, it will still convert that into text and recognize those mathematical symbols there. So you can have those equations up, and then you could still use another pen to show how you'd calculate those out or get your pupils up right and how they would solve those for you. Now, some other symbols that it will recognize sort of all the algebra and things again. Again, it won't calculate these for you, but it will allow you to have them on. So for example, if I did 2, add 9, close brackets, take away the square root of 16, it will convert that into an equation there for you. You can just move that into place. Again, if you want to, you can send it into the background. So if I just click on it, stack and transfer into the background, exit the background, and then you can have your pupils coming up and they can talk to you about which part they do first. So it might be that section that they work on first. Why is that important part? And showing that part as well, that you can do all those working outs. It will also recognize symbols such as pi. And you've got your pi squared. It will recognize the mean. It will recognize your percentage. It will even recognize things like, so if I did the sign, pi equals 0, it will recognize those, and it will recognize your fractions there as well. Just doesn't calculate the answers for you, but you can have all these equations up, ready on the board for your lessons, just to go on and then annotate over the top. So that's my final top tip for today, which is our maths recognition pen. I'm going to just stop sharing there for the moment. And if anybody has any questions, hopefully you've enjoyed today's session. Next week is our final and third session of our top tips, number 9 to 12. And we hopefully will see you all there. So any questions?
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Amazing as always. I've got some questions that were asked last week, but I think they might be important to go over again whilst we give some people some time to ask their own. So how much is LYNX, and are there any subscription costs?
LYNX is totally free. The only time you ever need to consider an expense with the LYNX is if you want it as an app directly on your screen, and then you do need a Clevertouch screen, an Impact screen or an Impact Plus, and then you can have it as an app from our Clever store, because any apps you get from the Clever store, which are free, you need to have a Clevertouch screen to use them on. Other than that, though, you can go to your app store, whether that's a Google Play Store, Microsoft Store, Apple Store. You can download LYNX Whiteboard as a free app and use it on your devices. So for teachers creating their content, totally free. And then, of course, plug your device into a screen and away you go.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Can I open my existing files?
So, yeah, absolutely. You can open your Google Docs, your Google Slides, PowerPoints, Word. You can even, which is one of my favorites, because as a teacher, if someone had told me we were getting new software or new boards, I would always have a bit of a panic that, oh, that means I've got to replan all my lessons. But the great thing is that Smart Notebook and Active Inspire files can be opened and edited on the boards. Now with Smart Notebook, the text comes through as an image at the moment, but you can move those around. You just can't edit the text. Whereas on Active Inspire, you can edit the text and everything. And hopefully by the end of this year, our developers are working really hard to being able to allow us to edit the Smart as well. So that will be great for teachers.
Brilliant. Thank you. And are there any guides available for LYNX?
Yes, you can go on our website, and PDFs, for example, of these 12 top tips are available to download from there. There's also our Clevertouch Academy, where you can do lots of courses and see lots of information about LYNX Whiteboard on our screens. And we have a YouTube channel as well, where you can watch lots of videos that showcase both the screens and LYNX Whiteboard too.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Does any questions the attendees might have, please post them in the chat. We'll get them answered. But if not, thank you so much for coming. We hope you enjoyed today's session. We look forward to seeing you in a week's time. The same time, 7, 9 and 11 British Summer Time. And we'll get these recordings out to you as soon as possible. But yeah, thank you so much for coming, and a big thank you to our presenters.
Thanks, Harry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a nice rest of your day.
Bye.
Bye.